Something strange is going on as an insider has just revealed a major update on Evgeni Malkin and his future in not just the Pittsburgh Penguins organization, but the NHL as a whole. And we also get an update on what Kyle Dubas is planning to do with Evgeni Malkin. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Penguins Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Pittsburgh Penguins, this is the place to be for all your daily Pittsburgh Penguins news. But Nick, let's jump right into it. We have some conflicting reports, I guess. We have some stuff from Kyle Dubas, and my conspiracy theory lives that I think that Kyle Dubas is saying one thing and he's doing the other, but we will certainly get into that. But you can see this here from Josh again. He said that even though it's not official, this is Evgeni Malkin's farewell tour. And that, I feel like that's a pretty big report in and of itself. We heard that about a month ago that, whether it's, it's him playing somewhere else, like it's not going to be with the Pittsburgh Penguins next year, even if he's staying in the NHL, and that's kind of up in the air right now as well. And obviously he just had his birthday just a couple days ago, or I guess a week at this point. He's 39 years old now. His production has dipped, right? He is still giving like decent production, but for his cap hit, his age, all of these things, you have to consider that. And again, Evgeni Malkin, he's a very interesting player for this team right now. Obviously, last year of his extension, Kyle Dubas came out and said this about the player, and I'm very curious for your thoughts on this, Nick. And not only that, but his future with the team. I also want to get into another report, or a quote from Kyle Dubas himself, but he went on to say that I talked to Malkin at the end of last year in the exit meeting and followed up with him, and I get it. He's in the last year of his contract. It's been a topic of discussion, but with the way we're going to go into the year, as I told Malkin in the exit meeting, we're going to meet at the Olympic break this upcoming season, and then meet after the season and figure it out. So pretty interesting stuff there. What do you make of that? I think that that's something that's going to happen with the Pittsburgh Penguins in terms of Tristan Jarry, a lot of other players, Sidney Crosby. Let's see where we're at the Olympic break. Let's see where we're at the end of next season. But I do think that there is a real possibility Malkin is traded at this year's trade deadline.
No, and I think something interesting to look at is the way the Penguins are kind of looking at the organization in like a timeline kind of thing, especially throughout this season. Let's look at training camp. Let's see how things go, because a lot of the trades in the NHL and for the Penguins are going to depend on how good players are or how not good players are, of course. In our video yesterday about Tristan Jarry, we mentioned that a lot of that rides on what's going to happen this season. And I think what happens to Malkin, honestly, might be an outlier to that, because all these reports, obviously, Dubas doesn't make as many cold blank statements anymore as he used to when he was in Toronto, when he was a younger GM coming to the league. He's more reserved, more diplomatic, and I think that's the smart way to go about it. Obviously, Evgeni Malkin, loved by Penguins fans, but I think they are, from what I've read, they are more willing to see him go than Sidney Crosby, especially because his production has fallen off. A main point you made, Darius, of course. Again, full credit to Malkin. At times, I want to say he was like arguably the best player in the NHL. He has the awards that do show that, but he's older now. He's 39. He only had like 60 points last year, and I think taking it, day by day, looking at him at the Olympic break. I don't know if he's gonna. No, he actually can't play in the Olympics. I don't even know why I brought that up, but he won't. He obviously won't be at the Olympics, so that'll be a good time for them to take some time. And honestly, I think this will be a more of a less low stakes season for Malkin, especially if he does know what's going to happen at the end of the season. The Penguins aren't going to be a great team. I still think their forward core is a little underrated. If you look at the whole all four lines, they're actually still pretty good. And last year, obviously, only 50 points, 16 goals, a little bit of a drop off, but he only played 68 games. So, maybe if you prorate that, it's a little bit better. Obviously, a dash 24, but the Penguins weren't good, so that's not gonna look good for him. But Darius, I do want to ask you, do you think it's more likely that Malkin ends the season as a Penguin? You may as well just your production's falling off. You have your cups, you have your awards, you're Hall of Famer. Why not do what a lot of players want to do and have that one team career? Or is he gonna go to another team, do you think, at the trade deadline? A team that wants a third or second line center. He can play in a lesser role and really maybe look good there. We've seen a lot of teams do that and be successful. A team like Florida comes to mind. I don't know if it'll be them. Maybe another team in the Atlantic. But what are you thinking from that end, Darius?
Well, let's hope it's not Florida, first of all. But I think that because they're getting everyone at this point. But I think that Malkin has the luxury of really deciding his own fate this year. Does he want to have that kind of storybook, final Stanley Cup run? It doesn't always go that way. We've seen that in the past. You're not always Brad Marchand last year, right? It doesn't necessarily always go that way, but he has the opportunity to do that, and I think help the Pittsburgh Penguins in that way by obviously getting assets back. Because yes, his production has dipped, but like you said, 50 points in 68 games last year. That's not horrible. Definitely his worst season, but a couple years ago, still hovering around a point a game player. Like, not horrible production, and with retained salary can help a team. And I think that a team would be interested in him. On the other side of things, like you brought up, he has the opportunity to stay with one team for his entire career. And if he goes out through this year, I do believe Kyle Dubas, listen, he's going to say a bunch of stuff. And he said even this, right? This is from Wes, that Kyle Dubas said no decision has been made on Evgeni Malkin. If this is his last season with the team, but let's be honest, it's looking like it's going to be his last season with the team, and they probably want some assets back from him. So I think if you're Malkin and you're the team, there's going to be maybe some hard feelings there, but I wonder if you try to look at a trade after or around the trade deadline, and after the Olympic break, because that could make sense for both parties. But to me, it would be nice to see him obviously stay with the Pittsburgh Penguins his entire career. But I do think, make no mistake about it, right now Kyle Dubas is, you might be saying something, or like you're saying, like he's not as direct as he was in Toronto, and I think that could be a good thing. But I feel like, the writing's on the wall. This is going to be his last season. There's been a lot of talk already. There's a lot of articles. This is from yesterday about, where he fits in around the league. The Toronto Maple Leafs are brought up as a logical trade partner. There's other teams that have been brought up. There's, the Colorado Avalanche. There's a bunch of others that have been brought up. So I think ultimately, what I think is going to happen versus what actually will happen is very different, of course. But I think that for the Pittsburgh Penguins, it makes a ton of sense. And I'll throw it back to you, Nick, too, for your thoughts on this. Like, it makes a ton of sense to me if you both agree, if you're meeting, let's say, like you said, Kyle Dubas is saying, you have kind of these checkpoints throughout the year. If you're meeting around the Olympic break and you're going, okay, we're definitely not making the playoffs. We're making the decision to move off of you. Do you want to go somewhere else? Could that make some sense? And I think that that's the route that, maybe the team should go, even though it's going to be painful to do that because he's been here his whole career. He's one of the best players of all time. And at some points, like you were saying, was one of the best players in the entire league for the Penguins.
No, of course. And I think obviously the emotional, at the end of the day, it's a business, but these guys are humans. I think it's easy for me and you to look at stats and contracts and be like, oh, just trade him, just get rid of him. But I think for Penguins fans, it's going to hard to see him go again. I said earlier in the video, I think it's just the reception I'm getting online. It seems like it's going to be an easier move than Crosby would be, emotionally. But if Crosby gets moved, I don't know how likely that is, of course. But I think Malkin move is probably one of the higher percentage ones. Like, obviously, the Rust and Rakels probably seem like they're going to happen this season. Same thing with Karlsson. The Penguins are going to be busy. And, we think it's easy to just sell off players. Like, we do it in NHL 25 franchise mode. You can just press Trade Finder and all these cool offers come up. But it's not that easy in real life. So making all these moves is going to be tough. And I think adding Malkin adds more business for Dubas to get done. And the Penguins could be electric throughout the season in terms of trades. And maybe they can surprise some teams and where players go and what they can get back. But to be honest, for me, I think the Malkin situation is almost similar to the Letang one, except he's just been in more rumors. I think for me with Crosby, I'd honestly like to see him go to another team because he's still like a top 10 center in the league, putting up insane numbers. So I could see him he could probably be a 1C on a lot of teams he would be traded to. Yeah. But for Malkin, you know what? I think for me, it's at the point where he's in the sunset of his career. All these rumors were about the last season. You know what, man? I'd say just finish it out in Pittsburgh. That's what I'm of the opinion of. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a sports fan. I like to see big names being traded all the time, and it makes for a lot of cool stories. But I think it'll be really cool if Malkin could just, ride off, go back to the KHL in Russia, have his hockey DB look really clean and just say Pittsburgh Penguins the whole way down. And I think the assets that they'll get back might not even be that crazy because he's just going to pick the team he wants to go to, and that's the team he's going to get traded to. So it's either going to be like, here's two teams, maybe the Rangers or the Leafs or the Panthers, whoever it might be, someone over in the Western Conference that's pretty good. And because the Marchand trade return wasn't even that great because he just wanted to go to Florida. So I think the same thing would apply to Malkin, and I think the Marchand situation made way more sense than the Malkin situation would. So for me, Darius, I don't know if you agree with me. I'll throw this back to you quickly before we end the video. I think Malkin should stay in Pittsburgh.
I think that it could be worth it to make that trade if you're the Penguins, because Malkin will be leaving for nothing. But I think, again, the emotional aspect from the fan base, and we're curious too. We want to hear what you have to say in the comments about that. Would you like to see Malkin ride off into the sunset as a Pittsburgh Penguin after this season, ride it out the season and never play for another team? Or would you like some type of asset back? If it is similar to Brad Marchand, because you bring up a good point, I don't know if I would like that too much. I do, I might rather him just like ride off into the sunset as a Penguin, but we want to hear what you have to say. So let us know how you feel in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.